Now that's an emphatic win if there ever was for Team India, because at the end of the day, their biggest win in terms of Test match cricket, 372 runs to, of course, wrap up the series 1-0. And it's a familiar scoreline that New Zealand have endured in the past in India. We have a man who, of course, was there in the 2016 tour as a batting coach. Craig McMillan, of course, joins us again in cricket.com to pick the bones of what's been a truly dominant performance once again from Team India. Their 14th series successive win, which is again going to show why this team is so good. Craig, your first thoughts to this humbling, should we say?
Disappointed. Disappointing way for the tour to finish, really. It offered plenty, but, and there was a couple of obviously bright spots throughout the two test matches. Obviously, Ajaz Patel was outstanding and quite remarkable for him to pick up 10 wickets. That was awesome. But the batting, you have to say, was disappointing in this test match. To get bowled out for 60, 62, that's embarrassing. And they're a better side than that, but they really didn't make the Indian bowlers work hard enough for their wickets. So that's something they'll have to reflect on and fix. They come home now for a little bit of a break before they start off two test matches against Bangladesh. So, yeah, disappointing finish to the series that I thought New Zealand had a chance of winning.
Okay, and what about that one bad hour that they had, that 1 hour, 30 minutes sort of thing, like you said, capitulating to 62 all out? And was that perhaps the biggest reason why they lost this test match? Because I think for the large parts of this series, you've seen the best of New Zealand, putting India in the back foot in Kanpur, not taking the initiative all right, but it was nip and tuck, of course, barring that 62 all out.
Yeah, I just think it was a bad, that first innings. You can't get bowled out for 62 and expect to be on a test match, especially in India. So it was one of those things that I think some of the players, you look at Daryl Mitchell, Henry Nicholls in the second innings, they show that you can score runs in India if you're disciplined. You make good decisions for a long period of time. Tom Latham played well with the bat in the first test in Kanpur. So our guys can do it, but one of the things I always say to our guys is that in India you score tough runs. There's no easy runs. There's in-outfield, so you make a mistake. There's someone there to catch it, so you have to be really disciplined with your shot making. But you can score runs in India. I thought the pitch at Wankhede was outstanding. I thought it suited everyone. I thought there was some pace and bounce for the fasties. Obviously some turn for the spinners. But it was the extra bounce. But that also helps you batting. As a batter, you want some extra pace and bounce on the ball. So I thought it aided everyone and was just a good cricket wicket. So, yes, there'll be some things that they'll reflect on this series. They need to keep getting better when they play spin because I guess they never had the chance to win the toss and bat first. That would have been really interesting to see if they could have put a first innings total of 300, 350 on the board to try and put some pressure on India. They never got that chance, so you always felt they were behind the game right from the start.
Yeah, and talk about, of course, what happened before the test. No Kane Williamson, his elbow flared up again. No Wagner, a man that you kept calling for to be playing some part in this test series. I know we spoke about how much we both hate two test match series. It should either be 3 or 4 because these two test matches just come and go. Before we go into some of the individual performances, I should say, what were the positives from the last tour that New Zealand had in 2016 to this one? Can they look at this and pick the positives? Of course, Ajaz Patel and the spinners come to mind.
Certainly, Ajaz Patel stands out, doesn't he? He was the leading wicket taker throughout the whole series. For him to take more wickets than Ravi Ashwin and Axar Patel is quite an accomplishment. So that's something that he'll be very proud of. The interesting thing will be that perhaps he might not play in New Zealand's next test match in New Zealand. So he might go from taking 10 for 14 in the match to not actually being picked in the 11 because of conditions here in New Zealand. Interesting stat about Ajaz Patel as well, Vinesh, is the fact that he hasn't picked up a test wicket in New Zealand. So all his test wickets, I think he's got 39 or so now, have come overseas. So it's something that New Zealand are going to have to look at, in terms of their pitches and perhaps providing some spin on days 4 and 5, and then you have to play a spinner. And certainly if they do need to play one, it will be Ajaz Patel. He's been the star. Tom Latham did a good job with the bat. Daryl Mitchell again showed that he's a good player. and needs to be playing more international cricket, and there'll be opportunities for him. Southey was outstanding, obviously, in the first Test match in Kanpur. Gets better and better with age and continues to climb the wicket takers list for New Zealand, so he was outstanding. So there's a couple of positives. Rachin Ravindra got exposed to Test cricket, so he started his international career. He looks a good player. When New Zealand tour away and spins involved, then he'll certainly play. He's an opening batsman, so at some stage in his career, he'll be opening the batting for New Zealand. That might be a few years down the track. And I guess the other one that sort of stood out for me too was Will Young, who did a really good job opening the batting, who hasn't played a lot for New Zealand and tends to come in and out, but he showed he's got the technique and the skill to make a good fist of opening the batting. So there are some positives, but when you lose by that big a margin, you're probably still looking at the negatives for a little while.
Absolutely. Will Young, of course, the right-handed opener, and I say right-handed because Conway, who's not in the thick of things right now, is left-handed. So is Latham, and like you mentioned, Rachin Ravindra, if he, of course, will be opening in due course of time. Let's see. Let's, of course, ask you about Ravichandran Ashwin because, look, 2 matches, 14 wickets. The last time New Zealand was here, he got the man of the series. This time he's got the man of the series. In fact, even in 2012 when New Zealand here, he's got the man of the series. So 7 matches, 59 wickets against New Zealand in India. He's truly the record-in-chief. But more than that, is he India's biggest match winner in Tests? Because we talk about their home dominance since 2012. Ravichandran Ashwin has been, I think, the best part of that individually.
Yeah, he's been outstanding. And he's a key player in that Indian bowling lineup. I know that he's had, obviously, some great results against New Zealand. And New Zealand really struggle against him. Because of his consistency, he gives you very few bad balls to hit. He does turn the ball. He's got enough variations with the Cowan ball. I've seen him bowl leg spin. I've seen him bowl little seam up. So he's got 4 or 5 different deliveries that keep you guessing as a batsman. But you really have to have a good defence against Ashwin. You have to be able to keep his good balls out. And I thought that New Zealand just weren't able to do that for periods of time. You saw the way Ross Taylor played. I mean, Ross could have probably one of his worst Test innings. He could have got out 4 times in the 8 balls he faced. And that was just the fact that he didn't trust his defence. And if you go out to bat in the middle in India and you're not trusting your defence to last a long time, then it's quite a lonely place to be. So Ashwin has been outstanding. It's something that New Zealand need to keep working on in terms of how they play him. But yeah, he's a thorn in New Zealand's side. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, not just New Zealand by the looks of things, because, look, I'll read you out this stat. Now, this is the 9th time that Ashwin's bagged a Man of the Series award in Tests, and that puts him level, in fact, with South Africa's Jack Callis, who also had 9. Only Muthai Muralidharan and Sri Lanka had more with 11. Now, that's just a testament to show Ashwin's in the great pantheons of Test match cricketers, all right?
Yeah, yes, those numbers certainly state that, and you couldn't disagree or argue against that. I know some people will question his away form, away from India in terms of his stats that aren't as good, and you wouldn't expect them to be as good as his home stats. But there's a lot of bowlers worldwide that perform really well at home, and then when they tour overseas, their numbers aren't quite as good. You only have to look at the New Zealand seamers, who are outstanding in their home conditions. James Anderson in England with the Duke's ball was outstanding. Struggles a touch when he goes overseas and has to bowl with the Kookaburra. So I don't think you should level that at R. Ashwin. I think he's just an outstanding Test match bowler who's won a number of games for India over a long period of time, and is certainly someone that New Zealand have real issues with. So, the record that he's fashioning, thinking that he could play another 3 or 4 years easily. Still relatively young in terms of spinning terms, but also, scores runs. He scores tough runs. He's one of those tough cricketers that I think perhaps India don't fully appreciate how good he is, but I know certainly a lot of people overseas, when they see his stats and see what he does to win games for his country, they truly appreciate him.
Yeah, I mean, some would say he's a street fighter. Some would say he's a student of the game. It depends how you look at Ravichandran Ashwin, because one thing is for sure, he's been literally reigning supreme in home conditions. And we talk about the other names that you mentioned there. James Anderson comes to mind, or be it McGrath and Vaughan, and how they were in that Australian era in the 90s and early 2000s. But that's a conversation for another day. I say another day. On Friday, we're doing a special episode on Ravichandran Ashwin, so check it out. It's going to be an absolutely brilliant insight to how he's gone about his business in Test match cricket, and really the anatomy of all the wickets. I think he's taken 300 wickets now at home, the second bowler to do that after Kumble. He's got so many left-handers out. He has them literally for breakfast. Let's, of course, ask you about not just the spinners, which, of course, came to the fore for India. Let's face it, Jayant, Akshara and Ashwin. But one man who really caught my eye was Mohammad Siraj, and he perhaps bowled the ball off the Test match to remove Ross Taylor in that first innings. Now, let me throw you some stats before I ask you a question. 10 tests for Siraj, 33 wickets, and he has a strike rate of 54, which is taking a wicket every 9 overs, and he's played most of his cricket overseas, remember? How do you rate him as the next Indian quick? I mean, is he really hostile like it looks out there, Macca?
He's a really good bowler. That I have to admit, when New Zealand played India in the World Test Championship final, I was hoping that he wasn't going to play because I thought he could be a real problem for the New Zealand batsmen with his pace, with his ability to just move the ball, nibble it around. And I think India missed a trick with him not playing at Southampton. I think if he had played, then that Test match could well have gone in a different direction. That's how highly regard I hold him. I think he showed the ability, and he got up to 147, which is some serious heat. He's roughly around that 140 mark generally, but has the ability to bowl quick. But the thing that impressed me was his control of length. He just hit a nasty length that the New Zealand batsmen couldn't get forward. They couldn't get back, so they got stuck on the crease. And Ross Taylor was a prime example, and I think also Will Young, where they were stuck on the crease and they ended up either getting bowled or edging to the slips because they couldn't get forward. So he's a key. He comes with energy. That's the thing I like about Siraj. He's in your face. He's a competitor, but he's got energy. And he picked up those 3 wickets he picked up in that New Zealand first innings, really set the ball rolling. So I think he has overtaken Ishant Sharma now, and I think Ishant Sharma's been an outstanding bowler and player for India for a number of years, for a long time. But I think his days are numbered now with the likes of Siraj coming through, who should be playing Test match cricket full time for India.
Yeah, it's almost, 14 years ago when Ishant Sharma burst onto the scene. He was kind of doing the same things like you said Siraj is doing nowadays. So it's almost the baton being passed over, hopefully, from an Indian perspective. Another man that I want to touch upon here with you is Mayank Agarwal. I know his 100 and his 62 in the second innings made him top score eventually in this series. Now, that's a good problem, I'm guessing, going into that South African tour, and the fact that he's an opener, because now you have KL, Rohit, Mayank and Shubman. How would you be seeing this if you were an Indian selector? I mean, who would you go for, to be fair?
Oh, good question. It's a nice headache to have, isn't it?
It is.
I think Mayank Agarwal is a very good player. I'm a big fan of his. I've got to actually know him personally over the last couple of years. When I worked at Kings 11 as the fielding coach, Mayank was there. And first off, he's a really nice guy, but he is a very, very good player. And he showed that in this Test match. He came into the Test match under a bit of pressure. There was some chat that perhaps he wouldn't even be in the playing 11, but he showed how good a player he is. So I think, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a battle for that opening spot with these 4 players who are fighting it out. So I'll leave that up to the Indian selectors who they decide to go with, but they've got options. And that's the good thing. You know, obviously when you're playing South Africa, the ability to play pace is crucial, and I think that Mayank is a very good player of pace. I thought the way he played Southee in this Test match, where he just made a couple of adjustments from that first Test match, where he was a little bit loose trying to drive outside the off stump, and you could see the discipline he brought into his game in Mumbai, and that held him in good stead and helped him go along, because he scored basically half of India's total. So you take his 150 off that first innings total, and it looks quite a different scorecard. So he's a quality player who, has been in and out of the Indian side. But the great thing about Mayank that I think is important for India is that when he gets in, he gets a big total. He's not happy with 60 or 70. He goes on to score 150, 200 plus. And anytime one of your batters gets 150 plus, it allows you to put a big total on the board and put the opposition under pressure. So I was really impressed with what I saw in this test match from him.
And remember, they were cruising at 80 for none, which became 80 for 1, and then 80 for 2 and 80 for 3. So Mayank had to get his A game on. He certainly did that. And in the end, look, India cantering home. We can look back in hindsight, which is a beautiful thing, and pick the bones out of quite a few things. But I want to look forward right now with you quickly, not too much into detail, but the South Africa series, is it India's best chance to go there and actually win a series? Because, look, in the past, they've got wins, memorable wins, in South Africa, in the Rainbow Nation. Can they go and win the series, you reckon, with this current crop of cricketers that they have?
Yeah, I think they can. I think South Africa aren't as strong as what they have been in previous seasons. Still a good bowling attack with Nortje and Rabada, who are two quality fast bowlers. But I think there is an opportunity there. You throw Bumrah back in the Indian side. You've got Siraj as well. So you've got two fast bowlers that can pick up wickets at the top and put that South African batting lineup under pressure. So I think certainly it is an opportunity. India is certainly good enough. They have won games over there, but there is an opportunity that if they get things right, and if their captain Virat Kohli can find some runs as well, he's been a little bit short, hasn't he, in recent times. But if he has a good series too, then there's no reason why I don't think that they can knock over South Africa at home, which would be a good scalp.
Right. Last couple of questions from my side then with regards to New Zealand, because look, the last time they were in that World Test Championship, the first one that was, they played a lot of catch-up cricket, and rightly so. This time the fixtures kind of go against them because they play some of the away tests towards the fag end of the competition. Can New Zealand solve this spin problem by perhaps preparing more spin pitches at home? This is something that I just heard on commentary from Simon Dool, because look, India have different surfaces across the nation, whether you talk about Mohali or Kolkata for the Pacers, or absolute rank turners like we saw in Chennai, or this one in Mumbai. Can New Zealand kind of do that to just eke out all those small problems that they have going forward?
Well, the issue, Avinash, is that most of the New Zealand Test players don't play any domestic cricket. So they don't get the opportunity to actually work on these things at a level down. They're having to do it at the top level, which is really difficult because there is a couple of pitches in New Zealand that do turn. Hamilton's one up north, and also Mount Maunganui is also another surface that we saw against Pakistan turn as well, and England 2 seasons ago. So there are some surfaces that do offer some spin, generally on days 4 and 5 after a little bit of wear and tear. They don't tend to turn and bounce like we saw in Mumbai at Wankhede, but there is some surfaces that do that. I guess the key is the strength of this New Zealand side is their fast bowling unit, isn't it? When you've got Bolt, Southey, Wagner, Jameson, you're going to play to your strengths. So from a New Zealand point of view, they want to see, I guess, a little bit of greenness in the surface and some pace and carry for those fast bowlers, because that's what's going to win them test matches. But I certainly think at domestic cricket that there should be more surfaces that where conditions are varied. They're not all the same. They're a little bit varied so that players can work on their defensive game with the ball turning on days 4 and 5. They can really work on that defence and where they score their runs. And the other key, I guess, is also having A tours to India and those sorts of places so that the next crop of players, they get exposed to it a little bit earlier so that they're just not getting exposed to it when they first make the New Zealand team. So there's a guess a work on for New Zealand cricket. It's something that I know that they have been doing some work on in recent years, but obviously with the performance in this series, it shows that our batters still need a fair bit of work against quality spin bowling.
Absolutely. Finally, Maka, I know it's been a debut for you on cricket.com. How have you enjoyed things with us in this, 2 test match series? Hopefully we can get you for longer going forward. A word for the fans and all the viewers and your time here with us.
I've loved it. I've loved being on cricket.com and just being able to talk cricket. I love talking cricket in general. So it's been great to talk about this series because these two teams have played a lot of cricket against each other in recent times and played some pretty cool matches as well. So disappointed that New Zealand couldn't quite get the job done in this test series, but India were too good and their conditions are a very tough team to beat. So congratulations to them. But I'm hoping that, yes, this relationship will continue and we'll have plenty more things to talk about cricket-wise on cricket.com moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And download the app, not just to Macca and, of course, the fans watching this, because it's a riveting app. It gives you all the information that you need and will, of course, bring you more analysis and stats following up India's big 372-run win. Thank you so much, Craig McMillan. We'll chat with you soon. Until then, it's a goodbye and goodbye from all of us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Right, I nearly said goodbye and goodbye there. I was going to say goodbye and good night, because in terms of New Zealand's time, it is good night there. And, well, for India, it's the start of the week to, of course, introspect going ahead into that South African series. Like Craig McMillan said, it could be one of the best chances that an Indian team traveling to South Africa has a chance to win the series. Only time will tell, of course. Catch it all on Boxing Day, 26th December. There was confusion about the dates. First test 17th. No, it's actually 26th. So get them right. We'll see you soon. It's a goodbye from me. And, yep, we'll talk soon. There's plenty of content, by the way. So stick around for that. We won't be too long seeing you soon.